We're standing here at Castletown Eel Weir. A structure which you see behind us here is situated just off the main Aughnacloy Dungannon Road. The Eel Weir is in two parts. This part, which is largely intact, and downstream about 100 yards there is another structure which we believe to be part of the Eel Weir, and it is in danger of being lost because of the poor condition. So it's a protected site. We, as the local historical society, Killeeshil and Clonaneese Historical Society, decided to apply for funding from the Department of Communities. After the funding was awarded, we were guided in by Maybelline Gormley from the Department of Communities Historic Monuments section.
My name is Maybelline Gormley. I'm Senior Archeological Inspector with the Department of Communities Historic Environment Division. I head up the Scheduled Monument Management team within Historic Environment Division. My team is responsible for managing and working with owners to look after protected sites around Northern Ireland. We're here at Castletown Eel Weir in lovely County Tyrone this evening. This is the only scheduled eel weir in the whole of Northern Ireland. A scheduled monument is designated for statutory protection under the Historic Monuments and Archaeological Objects Order 1995. What that means, its designation is recognition of its at least regional importance. This is the only scheduled eel weir that we have in the whole of Northern Ireland, so that actually increases its significance and importance to us. The designation covers this three box structure here that we've been working on this year. The river that moves northwards up to a main eel weir structure, and the small stone bridge behind that crosses over the river. So we've got here is a protected little complex that is associated with the Bawn House and the Bawn Domain that lies just to the northwest of this. This eel weir was a structure that provided domestic foodstuffs for the occupants of the Bawn. And as such, it's an important survival of vernacular life from the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries. The advantage of scheduling an historic monument is that the department then takes a proactive interest in how these sites are managed and cared for within the landscape. This site was scheduled in 2009, so we have been undertaking cyclical monitoring of it since then. Since 2009, the condition of this particular part of the monument was noted to have deteriorated through just natural processes, through just heavy storm waters coming through and floodwaters through this small stream. In 2015, the structure was in quite poor condition, but you could still see the form of it quite clearly. However, when our warden then visited in early 2024, he noted quite significant deterioration where a lot of the masonry had collapsed. At that point, the local historical society took an interest in this monument and its surrounding landscape, and they sought funding from the department through the Historic Environment Fund Revival Stream. And we were very happy to work with Killeeshil and Clonaneese Historical Society to devise a scheme that would give really long-term protection to this structure, because otherwise it would have been lost forever within another 12 months. So to progress the project, the Killeeshil and Clonaneese Historical Society engaged a conservation engineer to devise up a simple specification using HED records to provide a plan for a stonemason to come and undertake the work. Keith McCammon, local stonemason from Crafted Stone, was appointed by the Historical Society, and he then took the specification forward and undertook the work. So Keith, whenever you got the specification, what was the first thing that you thought?
Well, more of my first thought was it was nearly just like a pile of stones here. It was nearly hard to distinguish any form of a structure. But when we got stuck into it, we had to work through quite slowly just to try and see, any tells of things that were there before, and we did figure out a few things that were there that we were unaware of.
So basically, you started using the photograph records that HED had taken previously before it had properly collapsed.
Which was very important.
So we were able to gauge what the structure looked like, and thankfully all the stonework was pretty much where it fell. So you were able to reuse the stonework. So the stones are more or less back in situ. So were there any pieces of stone that you had to import that you couldn't find, or?
The two things that we couldn't find was the middle arch stone. Just did not exist. Whether when in collapse it had broken to several pieces, and then also in the left and middle, the floor had been washed away. When we were clearing, we found the evidence in the fire pillar, that we knew it was there.
From what remained, actually we were able to recreate then exactly how it would have been built originally. And it's really important on scheduled masonry structures, and historic masonry structures, full stop, to use the correct materials and the proper traditional skills that were employed originally to build these structures, because they're very, very different in approach to modern construction techniques.
Right.
So we were very lucky to have Keith on hand, because you have a lot of experience in historic structures and the use of historic materials, such as lime mortar and traditional building techniques. So what lime mortar did you use?
Well, it was on the specification. So we used
It's a nasty egg.
NHL 5.
The benefit of a lime mortar is that it's permeable and it has a little bit of give in it, so it allows structures to thermally move in a microscopic way, but it means then you don't get fracturing and cracking as much. NHL 5 is used for very exposed and sort of marine environments, so we decided that an NHL 5 in this particular instance was probably the best choice. You had to import just a very small amount of stone.
It was literally 3 stones.
We agreed, after you pointed out that we should have this particular type of capping, which hadn't been in our record photographs because that had already been lost. Can you tell us a wee bit about why and how you identified that this was the correct capping style?
Just in between these 2 trees, there was a little bit of the remaining full structure still there.
That was masked with vegetation,
That
and we
was
couldn't
completely
see.
masked, it couldn't be seen when we were clearing, and that's the point of the caution.
Yes.
Because if you go in too hard, you miss everything, and you could lose a lot of evidence, then we would never have had the answer to that. And it was literally only maybe 18 inches that was still original, just in between them 2 trees, which gives the clear evidence that of the style of technique that was used before.
And it's really important to have a good substantial cap, because otherwise the structure's vulnerable to the elements. We were very lucky to have the evidence there of the cap style, and we're very lucky to have a cautious and experienced traditional stonemason that was able to notice it and follow that along. So from the historic environment division's point of view, we are delighted with how the project has turned out. the work of Killeeshil and Clonaneese Historical Society has really secured this very unusual and I'd say quite rare survival of vernacular domestic architecture within the landscape for generations to come. And we're very lucky to have a local stonemason that had the right skills, experience and sensibilities to undertake the work so well. Historic Environment Division are absolutely delighted at how this has turned out, but it has been a real collaborative effort between the local community as a whole, the local historical society and central government working in partnership together. And it is important to acknowledge the voluntary effort that a lot of people have put into this, and also the goodwill and permissions that the landowners have given. Roberta Werner owns the land that permitted the access to this structure for Keith to work on. The owner of the Eel Weir, Andrew Lockhart, was very good in permitting the Historical Society firstly to submit the application and then for the work to proceed. In the Historical Society itself, it required an awful lot of effort and help. Marie and Eileen Quinn did a lot of the administration and behind the scenes work, but Richard Knox from the Historical Society Committee was really the liaison on the ground with the local landowners, with the stonemason and the people that live in the immediate area. It's really, really important that we work in such a collaborative and successful manner with local communities to achieve really great results. And the great thing about this project and the HEF Revival stream is that this will have ongoing benefits for local communities and more enhanced engagement with the heritage assets in the local area.